It's quite strange how we've come to the idea of tri-borough, because tri-borough is actually members councils as much as officers. And so the idea is actually a bit of a joint venture. So we didn't have to have any political buy-in because it came from the top. In 2010, there was a comprehensive expenditure review that looked at the services for all three boroughs. What I'm going to focus on is actually what we call Bi Borough. It's the work that happens in Royal Borough, Chelsea, and London, Hammersmith and Fulham. I don't really think that that's where it stops, because there are tri-borough services already in place. So children's services, libraries, and some of the corporate areas are already tri-borough and working with Westminster. And in terms of highways, we work, Hammersmith and Fulham already work with Westminster on the use of the IT system. I've not put saving figures in my presentation because they tend to change. So you've got 33 million, well it's now more like 55 million. So the target's been revised since this has been done. What Tri-Borough and Bi Borough did was create in the two boroughs a new department called TTS, Transport Technical Services being initiated. And it created an executive director that led both that department for both boroughs. Yeah. And this is a picture of the leadership, and Pickles, who we mentioned earlier, who's the minister, and that's where the political steer was. So we'll move on. So, shared resources, 50% reduction in management staff. Hard work, so I had lots more hair 18 months ago when I agreed to do the job. It means that I do 50% in Hammersmith and Fulham and 50% in RBKC. It means I have two offices, I travel through two, and I cover a whole about 100 councillors, roughly about 50 on each. What that 50% meant in terms of transport and highways was that 6 head of services we actually became 3 heads of service. Maybe one, there was one in Hawthorn, there was also one in transport precinct. The savings were around $250,000. Gives you a feel for the savings that took place simply by just reducing the managers at the very top. The important thing that I always have to say is that sovereignty is key. So sovereignty in RBKC, sovereignty in London, Hammersmith is key. So I promised you a bit of strangeness to this. So I'll talk about the strangeness that I've come across. Because I'm from Hammersmith and Fulham, I ventured into RBKC, and boy are there 2 different ways of doing things. Some of the other things is around the shared resources. So it wasn't just managers who were shared, it was also staff as well. But most of the team managers now will be Bi Borough. So my manager of planned maintenance is Bi Borough. The manager of minor maintenance and reactive is Bi Borough. If you move over to the other side to network management, all the team managers there are Bi Borough. So they're leading teams that are in 2 separate places that are doing a Bi Borough job. Interestingly enough though, shared resources actually moved down to staff as well. So we share CAD officers, we share engineers, both in highways and projects. We share a work performance officer, which is type of works for them being initiated, and we're also sharing a procurement officer. So it's not just the managers that actually flowed down to staff as well. Some of the things, benefits that we've got, some you can put price to, some you can't. The most important thing I think I always emphasise, especially when I stand in front of staff, is the expertise in the 2 boroughs. There are some things that RBKC do extremely well, stuff that Hammersmith and do extremely well as well. So some of the areas that we've shared work things, Hammersmith and Fulham do CAD work and land survey excellently. And that's the benefit to RBKC, where they don't have the same expertise. On the RBKC side, they've just done Albert Bridge, they've got Exhibition Road, and they do plan maintenance extremely well. So what we've done is we've used that expertise across the board. And the thing with staff is that this is an opportunity for staff. This is not, shouldn't be seen as a threat, this is an opportunity for an engineer in Hammersmith and Fulham, and that's where he's worked, to have projects in Royal Borough, and Chelsea. And we've got some pretty amazing projects going in the future for engineers from both boroughs who will end up as Bi Borough officers. reducing staff costs. So far, we are, literally from yesterday, around about the 500,000 mark saving in terms of staff. I'm going to come to the end of it because there's a bit of a caveat to that. I'm going to add shared practice as well. So shared practice is that Hamilton and Fulham do mobile working extremely well. RBKC don't do as well as that, and we tend to need a bit more work on it. But we've shared that best practice of what Hamilton and Fulham have already done with our colleagues in the RBKC. A CAD resource, there wasn't a CAD resource, too much of a CAD resource in the RBKC, so we share that expertise between us. And things like cabinet reports and how they're important to members. They do extremely well that side of it in the RBKC, and we've learned lessons on how to do that in Hamilton and Fulham. And the whole idea of doing this process is it's not one is better than the other, it's just finding the best of both worlds. And I'm going to talk about culture as well, because staff culture is quite important. And greater flexibility. So what we've done in both boroughs is when a member of staff leaves, the question is, do we fill the post? The question is, how can we do that by borough? It gives us flexibility because we need engineers both sides. So we've got more work on the Hamilton and Fulham side, RBKC, engineers would come over and work for Hamilton and Fulham, the other way. The total savings, with all those things put together, is on schedule to meet somewhere in the region of 1.25 million in the next 3 years. I've just actually looked at the service review, and we've actually already made 3/4 of that already, and that's in the first year. So we're well on schedule to meet that, probably more. This slide always goes to everybody who ever presents for RBKC and Hamilton and Fulham. It's all our best bits. You mentioned the football clubs. Of course, you've got to see Harrods. Maybe not such the best bit, Hamilton and Fulham, we won't talk about that. Some of the challenges I faced when I first took the job on is just the volume of what those two boroughs entail. There's 440 kilometres of highway, there's 45,000 bits of street furniture, there's 21,000 street lights and illuminated signs, there's 57 signs which are parking non-parking, plus my three favourite bridges, Albert Bridge being one of them. An immense challenge, plus the challenge of culture. As a Hamilton and Fulham officer and staff in RBKC know me as a Hamilton and Fulham, there is this thing about culture. There's the RBKC culture and there's a Hamilton and Fulham culture. And one culture thinks that Hamilton and Fulham culture is about to take them over and vice versa. Some of the work we did as part of the challenge was actually breaking some of that down. So that means that officers, we did workshops, officers decided to sit down and do processes together, we shared resources, we did shadowing, we do toolbox sessions, which basically is that if somebody's doing, say, a high-rise project, or bridge work was one of them, Albert Bridge, they do a toolbox session, they do a session on how they did that work, but they invite both Hamilton and Fulham staff and RBKC staff to share the experience. And it is kind of breaking down that them and us attitude. And the thing is that I said both boroughs are very different in how they look at the world. RBKC very much for reputation for quality public realm, exhibition, road speaks for itself, quality of the streetscape. Don't like CCTV. Love CCTV. Use it as part of their service. So you've got the balance, and the councils they kind of drive that vision as well. And in Hamilton and Fulham, it's all about network efficiency. Led the London permit scheme for street works and highways works. Major regeneration of Westfields, Earls Court is on the radar. Westfield's about to be redeveloped again. All about the network. Fulham Palace Road is one of the gems that we've just done to improve it. So all about efficiency. So two very different boroughs that look on the outside similar, need some work. Discussion points about Bi Borough working. Joint working is hard work, I have to say. I look tired because it's a lot of work. We started off with 18 service reviews covering a whole range of everything that we did in highways and transport. We worked that down to 12, and how these service reviews were done was the lead would be from one borough and the co-lead would be from another borough. And they invited staff of all different levels to look through the process of how we did the various bits of work. We used unit costs, we looked at how we delivered it, we looked at what the pressures were from councils, and we used the key principles that I've outlined there. With the ultimate aim of getting to one business group and deliver the service. And each of you has a compare and contrast. So what we did was, we had one borough, it's the other borough, unit costs, we looked at staff, how many staff and structures, how many staff and structures on the other side. And it was a compare and contrast with some narrative to say where the differences was. The surprise was that, despite the fact that there was an RBKC way and a Hamilton Fulham way, there were lots of common traits within that service unit. Very few stood out as being very different. Some of the comparing contrasts, and I've put this just to give you a flavour of what we did. You know, both are excellent authorities, both got similar areas, very similar populations, very similar networks, and the condition slightly better than RBKC and Hamilton Fulham, but very similar in feel. It's when you get to the members and the view of councils that it starts changing staff the way that they did things. Highways maintenance programmes, so scanner surveys, the programme review inspections, annual budgets, 3.8 one borough, 3.9 the other. Shortfall is roughly about $1 million, probably more in Hamilton Fulham than RBKC. So similarities there. The difference was when you looked at what public perception was, because the public perception in RBKC was coming out much higher than Hamilton Fulham. And that's the way that their officers respond. The way the officers responded in RBKC was very much an individual approach to members of the public and councillors, whereas there's a much more formal approach in terms of Hamilton Fulham. The other area that was of interest is how we do maintenance. Hamilton Fulham always has had traditionally a more reactive approach to maintenance, whereas RBKC has always had a planned approach. And you can see that there was always this 80-20 percentage mix. That Hamilton Fulham only did 20% maintenance, 80% reactive, and it was a different the other way. The story is slightly different, and it moves up and down when we talk about carriageway and talk about footways. The important thing is that because of the way that RBKC have done their planned maintenance, Hamilton Fulham are actually moving to do it the same way as RBKC. And that's a discussion point that if you asked me 3 or 4 years ago, would that happen, I would say, good chance of it. The fact is that we've reviewed, we've done further trials, officers sat down together and looked and contrasted, and they've found a way forward. So that is, again, both officers working together, looking at the best practice and coming up with an ultimate solution. This is a case study which is kind of on the journey, so we're not quite finished the journey yet. The next steps for us is around co-location. That's quite difficult considering the size of the organisation we're talking about. It is about sharing work practices, so the next stage in terms of our service reviews is that highways is not going to take planned maintenance. Planned maintenance officers from both sides, RBKC and Hamilton Fulham, will sit in the room, we call them a workshop, and one side will say, this is how we do highways maintenance, the other side will say how we do highways maintenance, and we'll try and find some consistency. But remembering that there are some unique features. RBKC love Yorkstone, they used to. Part of the changing process is that they've changed away from Yorkstone. So it's been a painful process because their councillors loved Yorkstone. There's been a reduction in the use of Yorkstone in RBKC, and has reduced the huge cost that RBKC used to have for its maintenance. That's Yorkstone's one area. So it is that shared working practice. We're looking, quite a controversial one, we're looking at shared contracts. Now there's a few out there. There's obviously LBHF, in fact there's a meeting going on at the moment talking about LBHF. But there are other areas. There's the Westminster Tri-Borough contract, which we are part of, and there's also Bi Borough, which we're also looking at as well. So what we're doing at the moment in the next phase of Bi Borough working is actually looking at contracts and which is the best way forward and which will give us the most value. And we have to report that back to members as well. And the other area which is quite quite a tough area is IT. The ultimate goal for Bi Borough and that's Tri-Borough is to have one system for the highways and transport group. The two favourites are Westminster uses Confirm, Hammersmith uses Confirm, and RBKC date. So there's a discussion around what that system will be. But there is also a push to use mobile working much more effectively than we've had in the past. Also how we use this, some of you may have heard of the blood monitoring streets, but how we use that to interact with the public. It's called HMEP report. I can't remember what it's called in the RBKC, so on a similar vein. How that is used to feed back information to residents. But the shared IT, we're getting officers out of the office and out into the street because that's where the work is. There's another form of where they do service reviews as well. And it's quite a key part. The other part of IT is that Hammersmith Fulham went on a journey of smart working. So when I work in Hammersmith Fulham, I don't have a desk. I sort of get down, log onto a computer screen, whatever entry desk there is, and that's reduced the space that my team actually need to work in Hammersmith Fulham. In RBKC, a completely different system. There isn't as much working. So there's a journey there to try and tie those two up together. But officers routinely work at home, police tokens, some officers don't even need to come into the office, and we're trying to make sure that the inspectors and highways engineers are spending more time at the site where they're in the office. So that's a bit of the journey. With a few figures thrown in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.